runner into the stretch, and it's Nyquist. Nyquist has taken the lead on the outside. Gunrunner, second at the rail. 5 lengths back to Destin in third. And they come to the final furlong. Exaggerator is closing in. Nyquist to catch with a 16th to go. Gunrunner, Exaggerator on the outside. Nyquist and Exaggerator, they're coming to the line together. And Nyquist is still unbeaten. He has won the Kentucky Derby.
All right, welcome back to Racing Rundown. This is a topic that no matter how hard we try to get rid of it, it just doesn't go away. And at this point now, I've kind of embraced that this is something that we need to take on and not really pull anything from it. And of course, once again, we're talking about the future of horse racing, and specifically protesters against horse racing. As I have documented, I've had numerous experiences up at Saratoga with my wonderfully awesome friend Patrick Bottuello, founder and president of Horse Racing Wrongs. Of course, I'm speaking facetiously right there, but that's besides the point. If you're not aware and have not seen any of the tweets that I put out of all the stuff that is currently going on in California, I have actually brought on the organizer of the Backstretch movement at Santa Anita. Specifically, I talked about that back in June of the Backstretch demonstrators. So this is Oscar Delatorre. How are you today?
Hey, good morning, Jack. It's a pleasure to be on your show. I'm doing great.
I hope I didn't butcher your name too bad. I'm not that good with the Spanish.
No, that's good. It's Oscar Delatorre, but it's fine. Delatorre is just as good.
My dad lived in Puerto Rico for 10 years, so I should be better at Spanish than I am. So, the question that I want to ask you first is, what is your involvement in horse racing for those of us who are not aware?
Yeah, well, I have family members that lost their job when Hollywood Park closed here in Southern California. And so I saw firsthand the impact, the negative impact that would be brought upon families, who lost employment, people that love horses, people that are experts in grooming and knowing how to take care of horses, and losing that employment and having a hard time transitioning to other jobs. So that's my family's connection. But I started working once I heard all of the problems that we were having at Santa Anita, and the pressure. The media was just reporting all the negative. There was really no voice being provided for the backstretch workers. For the workers that would be impacted. Really the human cost. To a ban on horse racing was not being very well articulated. And so I have a couple of friends who were working as trainers. So Hector Balma being one, and also Doug O'Neill. And I met with them, and they told me the problem, and I got to meet with many of the backstretch workers, and it reminded me, of my uncle, who used to work at Hollywood Park, and the love that he had for his profession, his chosen profession, and seeing the concern, and hearing the concern, of all these workers, who didn't really know what was going on, why the government was, taking all the action that was taken. I mean, and then all the protests that were going on, and the falsehoods, this false narrative that they saw in banners. They were looking at banners with it was one in particular where a horse was being shot in the head with a revolver. Things that they found just very inaccurate. And so that's when I decided to get involved. They said, look, we need someone to help us articulate, our concerns and the truth about what we do. We love our horses. We take care of the horses. And so that's how I got involved.
And that's actually kind of how I got involved in it, too. I saw the CNN article or not the CNN story that was on the 7.5 minute article, 7.5 minute video that was on YouTube. And that's actually how I found out that Horse Racing Wrongs was a thing. And I was originally going to bring on the president of that organization. I already talked about him, and I've talked about that ad nauseum. I was originally going to bring him on because I wanted to hit him on all the falsehoods that his organization is spreading, and, like you said, the human cost of it. And, he has said on numerous times that he doesn't care at all. Well, that's not exactly true 100% that he said that. He says he respects and admires the dedication to their craft that the backstretch workers have, but at the same time, he doesn't care. So that's the level of hypocrisy
go
that
ahead.
you're dealing with. No, that's just the level of hypocrisy that you're dealing with.
Yeah, the thing is that, we have to build a society where the compassion, for humans is really the foundation, right? I mean, it's hard to tell a group of people that, they should have compassion for animals or compassion for anything, when at the same time, there's no compassion for them. And many times that I encounter the animal rights extremists, and I say extremists because, there's a spectrum of care, and compassion. Some people, are on the far right, and they don't care about anything but just the horses. In fact, I've had some of these folks say, look, I don't care about the workers. I'm not here for the workers. I'm here for the horses. And then you have some people, part of their group, that say, look, if we can reduce the number, of accidental horse fatalities, if we can get those numbers down, if the reform efforts can work, I mean, ideally, we all want to get to zero. We don't want to have one, horse breakdown, right? I mean, but there are some of the animal rights activists that are reasonable, that want to see the reform work. So it's not. I don't think it'd be fair to say that they're all one group. There's people that support the reform effort, and then there's some people that are much more extreme, and that's why I call them the animal rights extremists, because these folks, they believe that it was wrong for human beings to domesticate any animal. So they don't even agree with dogs and cats being around us, because those are domesticated animals. And no one asked if those animals wanted to be domesticated. And they have a ideology that is not in line with the majority of the American public, and that's what makes it very problematic. Because in California now, I mean, knock on wood, this is the last day of horse racing at Del Mar, but we've only had 4 accidental horse fatalities, only 4, and that's a record. And all of them happened during training. So we had 0. We had absolutely not one, and I said knock on wood, because anything can happen in this sport, But we haven't had one fatal accidental horse fatality, not one during the race in Del Mar. I mean, so 7 weeks of racing, and that's pretty significant. To go from about 30 accidental horse fatalities in Santa Anita last racing season to 4 at Del Mar, and all of them during training, not one during a race. That's pretty remarkable progress, and it shows that the reform effort can work and can make horse racing safer.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I do want to not clarify, but second something that he said. And keep in mind, there is the 4 accidental fatalities during training. 2 of those were as a part of that freak accident that happened, I think, like on the 3rd day. I forget exactly what day during the meet it was, but the head-on collision that happened between the 2 horses, that was a freak thing. And not that we're trying to minimize those 2 horses. Of course, we never want to have anything happen to any horse, but if that didn't happen, then you're looking at 2 during an entire season. And, not that Del Mar isn't the only facility that's experiencing a shift in the numbers downward in the amount of accidental horse fatalities. I've seen that out here up at Saratoga. We've only had 2 fatalities during races up here, so it's getting better across the country. Reform efforts are working, and NYRA has done a lot. Obviously not as much as California has done, but NYRA has still done a lot to increase the safety and welfare of the horses themselves. So credit to all that stuff that's out there.
Yeah, no, and that's our priority. I mean, our priority is always horse safety first. I mean, the whole industry, the foundation of the industry is obviously having healthy horses and protecting our horses. And the backbone of the industry is the backstretch workers, right? So we want to make sure that the compassion that we have for our horses, and especially for those activists, for those people out there that are protesting horse racing, we want to make sure that the compassion that we have for the horses extends to the workers that take care of the horses. And that's one thing that we weren't seeing in California. And still to this day, I mean, we confronted probably about 40 protesters in front of Del Mar, and we've been challenging them every Saturday. I mean, we've been out there. They're out there, we're out there. I think we're setting a standard also, not just for horse safety in California, but also in how do you confront people that are spreading falsehoods and continuing this false narrative about what the horse racing industry is about. And really what they're doing is accentuating the negative with a bunch of lies and half-truths, and we've had to confront that. And for the first time in the history of horse racing in the state of California, we've confronted it head-on. And it's been very interesting in terms of what we've learned. I mean, there was a lot of things that, we know how to do, but there was some things that we learned. And we learned a lot about the ideology of some of the extremists. There's people, like I said, not all of them are on the same page, but there's people that definitely, if the American public, knew that these folks, for example, they want to push their ideology. It's like almost a religion. They're vegan. They're like, okay, don't eat meat. I respect that. I mean, that's people's choice, but still, you can't impose your values on me. I mean, I don't think that's right for any person to say this is the way you have to live. So don't eat meat. Don't domesticate animals. I mean, if they win, I mean, we won't have zoos anymore. We won't have any opportunity for human beings to connect with animals at all. And that's not good, I think, for the planet. I mean, how do you teach children, to support, policies, that are going to fight extinction of certain species if they've never even seen, a tiger, for example, or an elephant? I think we need to find ways to connect humans, with animals, and horse racing, with all of its imperfections, right, is one opportunity, and that's why it's so important for us to understand that we're committed. Obviously, our first priority is to protect the horses, but also to protect an industry that provides, numerous opportunities for workers and for working families to feed their families.
And you talk about the fact that the workers and all that kind of stuff. I love the thing that you said at the Backstretch demonstration at Santa Anita back in June, that you mentioned the amount of unemployed people that are in the city of Los Angeles alone. I believe the number's 57,000. You said that you guys
59.
don't... What?
Yeah, 59,000 homeless people and counting. That number's probably up to 60,000 people by now. So like 60,000 people in the city of Los Angeles that are homeless in the streets right now.
And that's just the city of Los Angeles. That's not taking into account the areas around it and just the entire state in general. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe, now going back to Santa Anita for a second, 8,000 people are directly employed by the racetrack. Is that true?
Yeah, correct. I think, the number's closer to like 5,000.
5,000? All right.
But in any case, I mean, we have 77,000 Californians that are one way or another directly impacted, by the horse racing industry in terms of employment, in terms of jobs, health benefits. A lot of folks don't understand that we provide housing as well, and so there's hundreds of people that are living, in the racetracks. And mind you, it's not the best housing, right? I mean, somebody's pointed that out, and I agree. But the reality is that it's better than a tent, under the freeway, and right now the housing costs in Southern California right now, it's almost impossible to find a one-bedroom apartment for $1,500, a month. I mean, the housing crisis is astronomical. It's just a huge crisis, especially in Southern California. That honestly, if people lost housing and lost wages right now, it would be very difficult for them to find housing and to afford to pay the rent. So that's why we made a very accurate statement that if you shut down the horse racing industry in the state of California, you will exacerbate the social problems, especially the homelessness problem, and especially in Los Angeles, where we're at the center of the crisis in our state.
And the one other thing that I want to bring up from Patrick, who's over here on the East Coast, he says that, and he's actually said this in front of the New York State Senate before, but he acknowledges that all those benefits are there and that, there's a lot of economic impact. But in his mindset, that because the level of income is not very high, the jobs are not very high paying, he doesn't think that they matter. And that is absolutely not the way that people should think at all. Someone's employment should be valued no matter what the paycheck is.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is that people take pride in their profession. This isn't flipping burgers or cutting grass. That's one of the things that I heard from some of the protesters out here. They would say, along the lines, hey, they can go get another job. These backstretch workers, they can go and find something else. Like they can work in restaurants. This one woman said, I own restaurants. I can hire them, And I said, that's very demeaning. I mean, you're not looking at them as professionals. I asked her, I go, have you ever handled a horse? And she goes, no. I go, I can tell you that, these horses, if you don't know what you're doing, it's a dangerous job. Like, these people have developed expertise. They're experts. They know how to handle a horse, and it's not so easy like flipping a burger or cutting grass or whatever. It's like, and you're not valuing them for the professionals that they are. I think it's very degrading to say that they can go get an entry level job somewhere else. And they don't want that. They love what they do. This is something that a lot of people don't understand, is that these folks who work in the backstretch, they communicate with the horses. They have a relationship with the horses. Nobody wants to see a horse go down. They feel it. I mean, it's an emotional thing for them if that happens, right? And in any case, there's just a lack of understanding. And we've invited a lot of the protesters. There's many times when we confront them, we talk to them. It's not just a shouting match. I don't want anybody to get the feeling that we're out there shouting at each other, even though that does happen every once in a while. I mean, 2 weeks ago, one of the protesters was arrested for attacking one of our peaceful demonstrators. But the reality is, we invite them. We go, look, we'd like you to come see what happens, in the barns. Like, come with us, And they don't want to. One guy said, no, I don't need to go back there to see what you guys do. So it's just like they just feel really comfortable. They want to feel comfortable in a false narrative, and it's not right. They should really strive to get the facts. To really understand what's happening back there. What is really going on. And if they learned the truth, they wouldn't be able, to say that, it's animal abuse, because it can't be further from the truth. I mean, there's so much love, for the animals, and that's all I've witnessed. I've never witnessed any animal abuse, but that's what they call it, though. They say that horse racing is animal abuse.
And, I was going to get to this a little bit later, but since you touched on that, would you mind, from what you can say, discuss what happened with that protester and her being arrested, in like what actually happened there?
Yeah, so we've been doing a great job, of turning out workers, people that are committed to saving their livelihood, right? I mean, you have these protesters coming out to the work site, where people work, calling for an end to an industry that allows them to feed their families. So we've been pushed back. We were out there every week, every Saturday, mostly Saturdays, sometimes on Sundays, and we've been out there, and some of our protesters are out there, and we're intermingling. It's their side and our side, and freedom of speech and peaceful demonstrations. No problem. But in this one Saturday, one of our protesters was one of our counter demonstrators was pushed by one of the animal rights extremists pretty hard. And he lost his balance and he fell to the ground. He hurt his hand. Luckily law enforcement was there. We had the San Diego County Sheriff's Department personnel. They were there, very professional. They handled it. They went and interviewed people, got the facts. Once they did their investigation, they ended up arresting one of these, a young woman, looked like she was in her mid-20s, and, put handcuffs on her, threw her in the back of a police car, and sent her to the station. She was let go, so I guess, I don't know if technically that's called a detain, right? They detained her and let her go. But yeah, it just, to me, was very surprising. Like, here you have people that espouse compassion for horses, and I was surprised to see that they can be so violent towards humans. It didn't make no sense. It was a big contradiction.
Now, I want to ask you, because before I did this this interview with you, I checked out one of the animal rights news organization that was out there covering the protest event this weekend, and I noticed a bunch of stuff that was either completely inaccurate or just not true at all. And one of the first thing that they said is that all you guys say out there is it's our jobs, and you guys as counter protesters don't say anything about the horses. That's not, from what I've seen, that's not the case. From you, who's actually there personally, that's not true, right?
What were they alleging?
They were alleging that the only thing that you guys are out there talking about and raising awareness for is your jobs.
No, that's not true. I mean, so first of all, we're out there to counter the false narrative that they're putting out there, and people are out there just to fight for their jobs, their livelihood. But more than that, it's also to stand up, for what's right. These folks are putting out falsehoods, and so we're out there because they're out there. I mean, the only reason why we're out there organizing the counter demonstration is because they're coming, with their banners, with showing horses being shot in the head and syringes all over the place. I mean, but the other reality is that the first protest that we started with, when we started doing counter demonstrations, we were very clear that there was two messages that we had. One is we're here to protect the horses and our jobs. So we care just as much about protecting the horses as they do, or even more so, because our workers are actually out there protecting the horses. They're out there just protesting. They don't interact with the horses, but we do. But the thing is, look, the main difference between us and them is that we support the reforms. We support the policy changes, that came from the California Horse Racing Board and the governor's office, and even Senator Dianne Feinstein. I mean, she was involved as well, right? So you have a lot of change, that came forward, and we supported that change. So everything from having more veterinarians, clearing horses for races, everything from phasing out Lasix and phasing out, medications that, the international standard, has already been to phase that out. So we support that. But really the main thing is to put, more care in terms of evaluating the horses that are going to race. And that right there has led to actually more safety, and that's why we're seeing the results. I mean, we're seeing, the positive impact of that. Four accidental horse fatalities in one racing season at Del Mar. I mean, 0 during the race. I mean, that's pretty significant, and so that's really the difference between us and them. They want to ban, so they want to ban the sport. Their whole thing is to eliminate the whole horse racing industry because they disagree with it, when I told them, I said, what about the reforms? I mean, don't you acknowledge that we've made some progress? I mean, that the reforms are working? And they said, it's too late. And it's like, what do you mean it's too late? I mean, we're in 2019 right now, and we went from 30 accidental horse fatalities in Santa Anita to 4 at Del Mar. I mean, that's pretty significant, But like I said, these are the extremists who want to ban horse racing, and they don't care about the reforms, and they don't care about the consequences that the ban will have, on humans or horses. I mean, what's going to happen with all the horses? If, let's say, assuming we would ban horse racing in California, where are all these horses going to go? They're going to go to other states where the standards, are not as good. I mean, right now in California, we're leading the nation, right? We have set, the highest horse safety standard in the nation. So if you shut down horse racing in California now, those horses are most likely going to go to other parts of the country where the standards aren't the same as the ones that we have now in California. So that imperils the horses. That makes it harder for them to protect horses. And so I really don't understand the reasoning, for why they want to push for a ban when it's not going to be good for the horses or for the humans.
It's just probably, I mean, in their eyes, it's just like you said earlier, it's they believe that animals should never have been domesticated and all those kind of radical beliefs. the other thing that was said in there, and I have also been in communication with Kim Mars, who is also one of the people who's out there. Kim also had some horses that were she was one of the people whose stables was affected by the fires in 2017, excuse me. And she and I were talking about the leader of that group, Ellen, and when in that later on in that news coverage of this weekend, Ellen said that you specifically are, number one, paid by the racetrack, and number two, you instruct your protesters to be violent and incite violence with her and her group is out there 100% volunteer, which to my knowledge, that's exactly the opposite.
Yeah, well, first of all, the day that one of Ellen's supporters attacked one of our peaceful demonstrators, I talked to Ellen, and I have it on the record where I asked her, I said, Ellen, I think it's smarter if we separate our people. Why don't you have your protesters on the left side, and then I'll put everybody, all of our people on the right side, so then like that we're not interacting with each other, And she said, and she walked away, and she said, I'll think about it. So wait a minute, that to me was really irresponsible, because there was a problem, and I came up with a solution on how we might be able to, keep people apart from each other so that they don't bump into each other and cause a problem, like what happened with her people. So, look, I've been involved for many years. I mean, I have more than 20 years fighting for civil rights, fighting for racial justice, fighting for economic and environmental justice. I mean, this is something I've done all my life, I've been about nonviolence all my life. I started a youth center. The motto is peace, unity, and social justice of that youth center. So we lead with peace. Why? Because nonviolence is important to make social change, You lose credibility when you use violence. And case in point, look at, this horse racing wrongs, this group that Ellen is leading in Del Mar. They lost a lot of credibility once one of their protesters was arrested. I mean, that's fact. None of our people have ever been even interviewed, There's never been an allegation that any of the counter demonstrators that we organized used any violence, but there is a factual police report. There is we have it documented, that one of her protesters was arrested. So, the facts are that we've never encouraged anybody to be violent, but the same can't be said, for the other side. And in terms of the horse track paying me, that's absolutely nonsense. I've received no money from the racetrack at all, So I got involved initially, as a favor to my friends, who are trainers. And, as you know, the horse racing industry, there's many facets to it, So all I can say is this, we did a tremendous amount of good to put the facts out there, to inform people through counter demonstrations, to press conferences, to press releases. We fought an honest fight with a lot of integrity in Del Mar, and we did it with very little resources, and that's all I can say. But the fact is that I have received not one check from the horse racing, from the track at Del Mar, not one check. So this is all, coming from trainers and my willingness, to get involved, because these workers deserve a voice. And the workers, many of the workers that are out there, they work here, this is their livelihood. I mean, they're fighting for their livelihood, and people have a right to do that,
Mm-hmm. And, I do want to say again, I've told you before that I think what you do is, I really appreciate what you do, and I wish we could get that kind of energy out here on the East Coast. Or not that energy doesn't exist, but get an environment where we can replicate what you guys do out in California. But again, just thank you for what you have been able to accomplish with your group and fighting for people who, not that they can't fight for themselves, but people who need a voice.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. Is that, I mean, the backstretch workers, it's like in any other industry. You know, the people that are doing the heavy lifting, you know, they're behind the scenes. But they're the foundation. They're the foundation of the horse racing industry. I mean, without their labor, without their work, there'd be no horse racing, you know. And these are honest, hardworking people. These are people that are family-oriented with great values. You know, they're realizing the American dream. They don't want welfare. They don't want unemployment. They just want to keep their jobs, you know. And that's what's so relatable about these individuals, these people that are, you know, working back there in the backstretch, doing an incredible job. But they're humble people, and they're also, you know, they don't, like they told me, you know, they were like, look, we just want to work. You know, we don't want welfare. We don't want unemployment. We just want to work. We want to feed our families, you know, and doing something that we love to do. I mean, there's generations of people in the backstretch, you know. I've seen sons of fathers and sons, you know, working back there. In one case, in one family, this gentleman named Dagoberto Lopez, he's been working for 37 years in the backstretch, and his son is currently a student at Cal State Long Beach. He's a university student, and his goal, and he also works in the backstretch. You know, he started working during the summers, you know, helping his father out, and he's part of a Doug O'Neill stable. And what he said was so powerful. You know, he said, look, you know, I've been helping my dad out. My dad was able to, you know, help our family move forward. I'm a university student now, and I plan to be in law enforcement or public education as a counselor. You know, so that's exactly what we want people to do in this country, right? We want people to work hard and, you know, move their family forward and get educated, right, and give back to society. I mean, that's in this family that's in the backstretch, the Lopez family. That's exactly what they're doing, you know. And people don't get to hear about that, right? I mean, if you only have one side reporting the negative, you know, just one negative aspect of any industry, you know, it's just not fair. For example, imagine if all we saw in the news is the NFL, and when you hear about the NFL, all you hear about is a concussion or a knee injury or an ankle injury, right? I mean, you know, that's all we heard, you know, and you didn't hear about the touchdowns or the lives, you know, the lives impacted, the changes that have occurred. I mean, yes, there are some negatives, right? I mean, I think in any professional sport, there's going to be some negatives, but that's not all that. You can't just define, you know, a sport or an industry, you know, by the negatives. You know, you also have to be fair and report the positives, and we weren't getting that in California. You know, the media was just, you know, every horse that, you know, had an unfortunate accident, they reported on that. You know, every fatality was in the news, but we weren't getting anything positive. There was no balance to the story. So once we got involved, you know, we started seeing things shift. And once people heard that, wait a minute, there's workers and how many, and you know, and they got to hear from the workers themselves, you know, how much love they have, you know, for their horses, you know, that these aren't, you know, evil people back there, you know, hoping that a horse, you know, goes down. I mean, that's the image that was being put out, you know, by some of these animal rights extremists. But once we put the truth out there, you know, we had more balance, and I think the public will agree more with us than with the other side. And as long as we keep on putting out the facts and showing the results, you know, that we're seeing right now in California, that the reforms are working. I mean, it's pretty incredible what we've accomplished, you know. But now the important thing is that the media, you know, and the media just has to report, you know, a balanced story. And if they do that, then I think, you know, the American public will understand that this is a tradition, an American tradition that deserves to be kept alive, you know, because the benefits outweigh the costs.
Mm-hmm. And you know, something that I want to second something that you said, like with your point of these aren't evil people that wish harm on their horses. I said that back in June when I covered the reform efforts and all that stuff. I said, regardless of what you think about these people, this is the truth. No one in horse racing wakes up in the morning and thinks, gosh, I hope my horse breaks down today. There is not a person, whether they're a trainer, owner, groom, exercise rider, hot walker, whoever it may be, there's not a person who thinks that.
Yeah, no, and it's quite the opposite. You know, I've seen people very concerned. I've seen folks, happy, that the reforms are being implemented. They feel better. I mean, there's a lot of good will right now. The morale is up. I think everyone. I think from the top to the bottom in the industry, people in California are starting to feel better because it was just horrible what was happening in terms of the attacks and the negativity and the falsehoods, and it just seemed like it was just going downhill fast. But the combination of the reform effort, with us being out there, putting out, our story, letting workers express themselves, informing the public, many positives that happen in the horse racing industry. I think we're not there yet, but we still have some work to do, and we're heading back to Los Alamitos next after today's the last day of racing in Del Mar, and then we go to Los Alamitos, and then we go back to Santa Anita. And, of course, the Breeders' Cup is going to be hosted in Santa Anita November 1st and 2nd. So we're excited about that. And we want to make sure, obviously we put the protection of our horses first, and that we continue with that philosophy, because that's been a major shift in the industry, and I think people need to recognize that everything that's happened in the state of California is going to have an industry-wide impact. It's going to have a national impact, and people need to understand that it's important for us to win this fight in California because it's going to have national implications, and all of us need to be aware of that. But we're doing a great job now. I think we're turning it around, and we're excited about what's to come.
And I can definitely second that. And, that's obviously the number one priority. You mentioned the Breeders' Cup, and, from what it's shaping up to be, it's going to be a great Breeders' Cup this year. And California, I honestly think now that it's better that it's at California, because you guys are going to be able to show to the world the highest standards that California has set in the United States.
Yes, I think that's going to be real important for us to highlight that, and for us to put that, front and center. That we've, in a short amount of time, we've made a lot of progress, especially evidenced by a successful, season at Del Mar, with great numbers, great results. Obviously, we're not where we want to be. Well, ideally, we'd like to be at zero, right? Zero accidental horse fatalities. I mean, that's what we're pushing for. We want to get to that. But the reality is that there's a lot of progress, and we want to highlight that. And I think as the news, agencies and the media reports on that, the public is going to be much more aware. And I think we're in the process of building that public trust. Getting people to understand that this is not an evil industry, or this is not animal abuse. This is a long tradition here in our country, and there's a lot of positives. A lot of positives in the horse racing industry, and the priority is to protect our horses. I mean, nobody wants to see a horse go down. So that's going to continue, and I think with better results, in every racetrack throughout the country.
Now, one question that I would like to ask is kind of a housekeeping thing. Is do you guys have an open door policy for new people who would like to join your demonstration? Like, if anyone does see this and is in the state of California and would like to join you guys in your counter demonstrations, is there a way for someone to for a particular person to contact anyone, or could they just show up at the racetrack and help you guys out?
Yeah, no, we invite people to show up. Obviously, I'll do a quick orientation with everybody. I let them know, sort of the rules, what we can do, what we can't do. We work in cooperation with security and law enforcement. So every time that we do a counter demonstration, we know exactly what the rules are. We explain that to everyone so that everybody is safe. I mean, that's a priority for us as well. And but yeah, typically people have shown up. They get a sign. We have signs. We ask them to stand up there, and we encourage people. We've been welcoming people to the racetrack. And thanking them for supporting an industry that's providing jobs and opportunities for thousands of Californians. And also the labor organizations that have been out there with us too. There's Local 280, SEIU, the Teamsters. There's various organized labor groups that have been supportive because, it's not just the backstretch workers. I mean, concessions, parking attendants, there's just a whole lot of people, I mean, on the front and the backside, right? There's a lot of jobs, a lot of employment opportunities. And those jobs would totally be lost if we did an extreme ban on horse racing. And so, but there's been a lot of workers that have been out there supporting us, not just the backstretch workers. I want to make that very clear.
And yeah, so, it's not just, even in the workers that are affected, the backstretch workers get highlighted the most. But, there's also, like you said, the concessions, the parking staff, all those people are affected too. So, if you are at all interested in supporting this at all, just like Oscar said, they're going to be at Los Al, and then once once Santa Anita picks up again, they'll be out there. So if you're at all interested in doing this, like he said, you can just stop by and help them out. I will also put this out there. I have been working in coordination with We Support Horse Racing, and for the Travers Stakes a couple weekends ago, last weekend, I did a giveaway of a bracelet for We Support Horse Racing bracelet. We're going to do something similar of that for the Breeders' Cup this year. One of the other people has said that she will send me out a couple of t-shirts and another bracelet, and we will be giving away one of those t-shirts for a Breeders' Cup competition, very similar to what we did for the Travers Stakes. So, just making that aware. I'll give more information about that going forward. Oscar, thank you for doing the show with me today.
Yes, no, it's been a pleasure, Jack. Thank you very much for all that you do. And, just putting out the truth, that's all. As long as we tell the truth and we hold ourselves accountable to the reforms, clean up our act, make things better, protect the horses. That's all going on. That's all going on right now, And it's great to be, in this moment in history, defending an industry that's getting it right, And that's what we're doing. We're getting it right in California. The reforms are having a positive impact on our sport, and we're going to continue, to do that so that the good work that we establish here will, have a ripple effect on the rest of the nation, right? We have, a lot of other racetracks that can learn from what we have accomplished here, especially at Del Mar, and we look forward, to continuing, the good work, and moving forward to Los Alamitos and Santa Anita. We'll be out there. We'll definitely, wherever there's protesters or there's people protesting our sport, we're going to be organizing counter demonstrations and working to balance the story out. So hopefully people can join us, and be a part of history, defending an industry that provides countless opportunities for many Americans.
And I hope that once I can finally get myself out to Del Mar with the podcast and everything, I hope to meet you in person and be able to give you a hand. So that will happen at some point. Not sure when. Not making any promises as to when that happens. Probably not next year, but definitely in the time going forward. Again, thank you for coming on, and thank you for what you do.
Thank you, Jack. God bless you, and look forward to seeing you sometime out here. Take care.
Have a good day.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Loaded comes after front-running Riker, and they're coming to the top of the stretch with Riker turning for home in front. Cocked and loaded, and here's Nyquist on the outside, making a rush for the front runners as they come toward the final furlong, and Nyquist has taken the lead. The undefeated Nyquist in front with 1/16 to go, and to the outside comes Swipe trying to close in. Nyquist and Swipe down to the wire. Nyquist has won. He's a champion.